If you're looking at taking better action shots, the next 10 minutes may give you some good tips. Whether you shoot Canon, Nikon, or have third-party lenses, this isn't a comparison. There's some tips that apply to both types of equipment. Main thing you're going to need, a digital SLR. Most important part of that digital SLR is something with a low shutter lag time. When you hit the shutter release, you want that exposure to be taken. You're going to want control over shutter priority, aperture priority, full manual modes, and even things like metering control, focus control, and of course good frames per second if you'd like to shoot pictures in rapid successions. I say somewhere around 4 frames per second is probably the minimum. Most cameras are a little bit higher than that these days. I personally shoot with a Canon 7D. It is 8 frames a second, very fast, great shutter lag time at 59 milliseconds. Depending on your budget, you can get something a little bit faster or a little bit slower. Nikon makes fine, fast cameras as well, so don't fret if you don't have the brands that I have listed here. When it comes to lenses, there's really a couple different schools of thought, if you will. There's if you're shooting sort of low light or bright light. Low light meaning outdoor football games at night or indoor basketball games. You're going to need some pretty fast lenses for that. If you're shooting full outdoor, you can get by with slower lenses, some of the consumer grade lenses, but there's some ideal focal lengths that are listed on the screen there. Of course, there's many more action types that I have listed here, like race cars and biking events and things of that nature. Keep in mind that some lenses tend to be very expensive. The faster they get, you might consider a prime lens. A little difficult to manage with a fixed focal length, but certainly a viable option. Some camera settings that you're going to want to do is you're going to have to get off the creative modes and you're going to have to get off the green mode. You're going to have to go to manual, aperture priority, or shutter priority. I know this is out of the comfort zone of some people, but there's really no option, no way around that. When it comes to white balance, most cameras do good with automatic white balance, but you may have to go to some other type of setting if you need to. You might want to shoot in machine gun mode, rapid succession. I call it machine gun mode. It's up to you. There's some pros and cons for that I'll cover in just a few minutes here. If you have image stabilization or vibration reduction, turn that off. That is only good for still. The small little thumb wheel that you see on the camera there, it's a diopter that helps adjust the focus point of the viewfinder. So if yours is blurry, that's probably why. Something about spot focusing. Typically cameras on green mode will do an averaging method, so it'll pick many things in the scene, try to average the focus point, and you don't know what you're going to get. I always shoot with spot metering or spot focus here. I want that little girl's face in focus, so I make sure that I focus directly on that. So how do you set your camera up now? So if you're shooting with low lighting conditions, AV mode is probably where you're going to want to start. It seems counterintuitive to sports photography, but you're going to want to force the highest shutter speed, which you're generally never going to be able to get because of low light. You'll want to pick a lower aperture and let the camera get the highest shutter speed that it can. You're going to want to walk your aperture down and your ISO up until you can actually get the right exposure in there. If you're shooting with something a little more light, that is, like outdoor, for instance, TV mode is probably where you want to start. Set with a shutter speed that is going to get you your desired stop effects. This is something I can't tell you easily. You're going to have to experiment around with this. For instance, a baseball player, you might want to have stop action around 500 to get the ball just slightly blurred, but something fast like a race car event or something, you might want to crank your shutter speed up even higher. You're going to have to experiment around with that. Pick a lowest ISO that you can. You're going to want to walk that up until you can get a decent shutter speed and a decent depth of field. Some sample shots for what I call machine gun mode. Maybe not an industry term, but here I just press the shutter down and let it do its, this is a Canon 20D, 3 frames a second or so, and while it got that shot, I was very lucky to get this shot as well. Most people think just hold the shutter down, take 20 shots in a row, and you're bound to get one. That's all pure luck there. You're really going to want to learn how to time your shots. There's another one, pure luck, that I just held the shutter down, and I got the football player stepping in bounds. If you want to guarantee results, you're going to have to learn how to time your shots, like the joust actually bending. If this were shot in rapid succession mode, I would have never gotten that. I'm very good with timing things. You're going to have to learn how to do it as well. Some sample shots for stop action styles. Most people think just take the shutter speed and crank it up as high as you can get, and while that does work, it tends to look a little freakish. The ball looks almost painted in that image, and there's really no movement by any kind of level of blur. This image here, probably a little bit too much blur. You can see the hula hoop has got some nice action on it, but the subject is starting to blur a little bit as well. Sweet spot somewhere in the middle. Again, I can't tell you. You're going to have to experiment around with it. The tires are nice and blurred. The background is a bit blurred, and the subject itself is in a nice clear view. So, little tip: minimum shutter speed is going to be 1 divided by the focal length times the crop factor. So, on something like a 200mm lens, you're going to need to set your minimum shutter speed, and that's just to counteract the handshake effects of about 1/320. So if you've got real low light condition and your meter says I can only get 1/200th of a second, you're not going to get very clear shots with a very long lens. So that's why you're going to have to work with your ISO and some of your other camera settings to get something more appropriate. Here's some sample shots for depth of field. This is one of my signature type of things that I like to do, is have a lot of background blur. The first example on the left, you're really looking at the people sitting down and the spectators. It's very distracting. It's hard to see the baseball player take a swing at that home run. While the one on the right, obviously it's got a lot of background blur and draws your attention to the subject. Now I realize the background is much further away. It's naturally going to be blurred, but if you like that effect, you're going to have to get a wider aperture or a lower aperture value. f2.8, f4 is probably the minimum that you want to be. Some sample shots for ISO settings. Some people think that low light, crank the ISO all the way up. You don't want to do that. This probably doesn't come out very well, but this is a very grainy shot. It's a throwaway shot. It's got a lot of noise in there. Where something like clear ISO 200, you can really start to see the detail in the shot. So be careful when you start cranking your ISO up that the higher it doesn't necessarily mean better. So a couple tips on where to stand. It really depends on the type of event that you're shooting. If you're shooting a fast moving object like tennis or basketball or auto racing, find a good spot and stick with it. Move periodically to adjust for background or light conditions. Slow moving objects like football or swimming, move with the object but don't chase it around. Something like football games, for instance, I'll get myself 5-10 yards ahead of the ball and I'll kind of walk with that line of scrimmage as it moves around. It's always great to see the quarterback throwing the ball almost at you. Look for places where light illuminates the subject very well, meaning get the sun at your back. Look for background obstacles that might be kind of bad to see, like telephone poles and stuff like that. And make sure that you're courteous and you're not in spectator's view and are out of, obviously, the object's way. Don't go walking on the football field or anything like that. And make sure it's legal for the sport. A place that I like to go, but you can't, is behind the goal at a soccer game. It's really illegal to be back there. So just make sure you are abiding by the laws of the particular sport. This shot here, I was at the, I guess, the net line. Typically when people want to take pictures of their kids playing tennis, they want to side on the same side. You probably don't want to do that. Get on the opposite side. That way you can look at their face when they're shooting it. If you're at a football game, go right to the goal line. If it's the ball's getting close to it, it's a great way to catch that. If taking a picture of a baseball game and the pitcher is right-handed, line up on third base. If the pitcher is left-handed, line up on third base or first base. That way you can see their actual face. Opposite for the batter, if they're left-handed, line up on third base. That way when they're taking a swing, you can actually see their facial expressions as they're swinging for the fence. If you're into concerts and stuff, action shots there, if you can get right up at the stage, right at the front, that's the best place to be. Or if you're at a play or a school dance or something, try to get as close as you can to try to catch as much action, like the little boy taking his mask off at this particular event. When to shoot if you have a choice. Probably the worst time to shoot is at midday. You've got the sun coming straight down and it gives us nasty, nasty shadows in the children's faces. A lot of times you just don't have a choice, and that's when you're going to have to do it. These are mostly throwaway shots. Midday shot during a tennis match, the boy happened to look up, so at least I got some light on the face there. But as soon as he lowers his head, the head comes down, creates that shadow on the face. This is not bad, but definitely not optimal. Outdoor events like airplane shows and things of that nature. This was taken around 5 o'clock, so I've got a little bit of dusk lighting, if you will. And it's not optimal. These Blue Angels here, this took a lot of Photoshop editing to bring that into view because as such the light was almost right overhead and almost ruined the shot. Like I said, you don't have a choice over that, and sometimes you get what you get and you try to work with it. And here the light was so hard in the background, I did a silhouette. Morning is the best time. Look at the lighting on the children's faces. There's no shadows. It's very well lit and creates a very nice bright effect. Dusk is the other time when you get that really nice sun almost right before it goes down, illuminates things very well and has a real nice color to it. Again, sun at dusk. This was right before the sun went down, right before the stands. You can see the shadow from the far right hand or lower right hand. And it's a great way of illuminating all the children's faces. Here, right when the sun goes down, you get this what I call a white box effect. There are no shadows, very flat, very unappealing lighting, but it's not like you can stop the game and roll it back a few hours. Then into the night, you're at the mercy of the lights, and generally stadiums don't have very good lights, so you're going to have some really fast lenses for shots like that. This is taken at 1600, ISO 1600 with a 2.8 lens, wide open. And this is about the best you're going to get with that kind of equipment. When you're at professional events, it's a little bit different. The lighting is better. Framing, this is probably one of the more important aspects. Try to capture enough of the to put the thing in context to whether it's a soccer ball or a basketball or something. What a lot of people try to do is they'll get their 300mm lens out there. They think they're going to dial on the mask of a sports player, like their face, their cheeks, their nose, their mouth. It just isn't very realistic. You're going to have to zoom back a little bit and frame the subject so you catch just the story that you want to tell. Here I was trying to convey the idea that I'm going up for that killer shot. I'm going to think it through and I'm going to see if I can make it. Other types of framing, left hand side, the basketball player in context taking a free throw shot, probably not the best of framing. Backboard would be nice to have in there. Little boy was probably one of my favorite shots. He's swinging for the fence. You can see it. Some people in the background. He's in full view. You really know what's going on here. This soccer player here is actually another one of my favorite shots. Well, normally you would want to get, the facial expression of that, but him lining up for the shot, the goalie off in the background, really great. This is one of the times when fast-moving sport, remember, don't chase the ball around, plant yourself in one spot, and you're just going to have to wait for the shot and be very, very patient with it. Same thing here. I took this right behind home plate, not my favorite place to be. You don't see anybody's facial expressions. You see this appears to be a second baseman out there trying to get that shot. The pitcher behind home plate, much better point of view here. He's lining up for his winning strikeout. The batter's getting ready to clobber the ball, and the shortstop is getting ready to field it. So that's a good framing shot there. You don't need a 300mm lens to get that. This, if I remember right, was taken with about a 100mm lens. So again, it's not like you need to get a long zoom lens and zoom way up. Get yourself in a position in the stands or near the dugout. In this particular case, you can take advantage of a shorter length but a faster lens. Last but not least, don't forget to capture events outside the activity. The opening ceremony at a football game where people are crashing through a banner, or when they're flipping the coin to see who's going to kick off or receive, or the flip of a coin at a soccer game. Various other things could be brought in. When a player is hurt, or when they're taking a break, or when the coach is cheering them on. Perfect examples of that. Last but not least, you're going to start taking pictures of people, and people tend to not like their picture taken and published, so you might run into some resistance from parents that want to know what you're doing out there. Have a good story. If you have a good reason to be there, that's all the better. And if you're going to put that stuff in print anywhere, make sure you have a model agreement on everything that's included in that in terms of all the people that are involved. I hope you learned something, folks. This is kind of a quick video here, but that's it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to comment.